that you can see just south of us. You could smell the smoke. You could feel it. It smelled like something like a, sort of being in the center of the last burning embers of a bonfire. It felt very much like that. And now this I guess it's afternoon now, it feels a little bit more clear. But again, Leon, if you've been here for the last couple days, the air quality changes from hour to hour, from minute to minute.
Incredible. Michael Oku, thank you very much, giving us those scenes that look like they're straight from a Mad Max movie. Scenes created perhaps by a madman. Michael Oku in New York, thank you very much. All right, our coverage, our extended coverage right now, America Attacks, begins right now.
This is CNN.
And welcome back. This is CNN's continuing coverage of America Under Attack. I'm Darren Kagan.
And I am Leon Harris. Now, we want to start off this hour by bringing you up to speed on some of the latest developments in this fast-moving story. Federal authorities are casting now a wide net in their search for suspects. People both here and abroad are being brought in for questioning. At ground zero for the attacks, the search for survivors continues, but hope for finding anyone alive is fading and fast. And on another front, U.S. airspace reopened last hour to commercial and private flights, but only airports that meet these new tighter security guidelines are going to be allowed to reopen. New York's 3 airports are among those that have reopened on a limited basis, but just because planes are allowed to get back in the air, that does not mean that all airlines will be fully back in business right away. In Boston, Logan International Airport remains closed today. And one official says that that airport will not reopen until it has met all of the enhanced security requirements required by the FAA. Now, you may recall, 2 of the planes that were hijacked flew out of Logan Airport.
The investigation into the attacks is unfolding on several fronts, including flight schools in Florida. Investigators are also looking at the records of students' trains at the flight schools. We'll have more on that story in a minute. Right now, we want to go to Capitol Hill. Richard Gephardt speaking. Let's listen in.
Showing the way and expecting that we would do that, and we are doing that, and we are responding. The resolution yesterday was the first response of the Congress. I thought the debate was moving and well done. Today we are working on dealing with other challenges, and we will continue to do that. Let me say one other thing, and then you can go to questions. In all my time in public service and in my whole life, I have not been part of such a severe challenge to this country. Terrorism is an action against humanity. It's an action against civilization. It's an action against everything this country stands for and is about. In dealing with this, we will not give up our freedom. We're going to have to change the balance between freedom and security, but we will not give up our freedom. We will not be defeated as to the basic values and ideas that underlie this country. And we will do that by standing together and having no air and no light between the President and the Congress and between the parties and the different viewpoints of this country.
You made several times today the point that you are standing shoulder to shoulder with the Republicans. You still, however, have substantial differences on the appropriations bill, the breadth of authority the President will have to decide how to spend the money that will be appropriated, and also the breadth of authority the President will have on deciding who to and how to respond to this attack. How do you resolve those differences?
By what we're doing.
Isn't there light and air between you and those issues?
No, we're working to resolve them in a collegial, collaborative way. I just left a meeting with the leadership in the House and Senate, the appropriators in the House and Senate, and we talked about resolving what, frankly, are important but not substantial differences that still may exist. I am confident that in the next hours we can work out those differences. The same thing is going on with regard to the authority that the President apparently wants to deal with this problem. And what you're seeing is real collaboration. What you're seeing is real working together. What you're seeing is real unity. And I said a number of times in the meeting, the people of our country are exhibiting incredible patriotism, heroism, bravery, and courage. They are working together to meet this challenge, just as we have at many times in our long history. And that's what we're doing inside this building and will do in the next hours and days to meet this challenge.
Does the President need authority from Congress, Mr. Gephardt?
Get it out today.
We're hoping to be able to have the Congress, at least the House, if not the House and the Senate, be able to act today on a supplemental appropriation.
Mr. Gephardt, should there be a declaration of war?
My own thought is that the President has powers in present law to deal with what's in front of us. If the President wants and seeks additional authority or a restatement of present authority that's appropriate, we are quite willing to do that. We want to give him the tools that he needs and his administration needs to deal with this problem. We are behind that and we are for that. And we will work today and tomorrow, and if it takes Saturday and Sunday, we'll stay here and do what needs to be done to try to get these things done in a sensible, appropriate way.
But if he wants to launch an attack against somebody today, you believe he has the authority to do that under?
The President, under our Constitution, has the power to defend people in the United States, and I think he has the power to do something to retaliate against terrorism. We're in a new world. A lot of the concepts that we have dealt with in the past have been with the normal situation where one country attacks another or attacks the United States. When Pearl Harbor happened, the President asked for and got an authorization to use force against the country of Japan, and he was pledged by the Congress all of the resources that he needed in order to succeed in that effort. And then after that, we had a number of appropriation bills that gave him the resources that he needed. I've said before, this calamity caused what I think will be the greatest loss of life on American soil by an outside force in the history of the country. When it's finished, I'm fearful that the 24 or 2,500 lives that were lost at Pearl Harbor will be exceeded substantially. This was an enormous catastrophe. This was an enormous attack against the people of the United States, and I would say all the people of the world who love and honor civilization and humanity. And we must act in concert and together to give the President what the President needs and requires in order to get this done. We don't want to contravene our Constitution. We don't want to blur the various powers of our government. We don't want to, change the Constitution, and we don't have to do that. But what we have to do is work together internally in the Congress, with the Senate and the House, Democrats and Republicans, and then with the President to get the right things in law and the right things done so we can meet this challenge.
Will this be a declaration of war against the terrorists? Will Congress do a declaration of war against the terrorists?
It will be a piece of legislation which authorizes legally the president to take appropriate actions against the perpetrators of this giant atrocity.
Mr. Gephardt, the Ways and Means Committee chairman today unveiled legislation, an emergency stimulus package that would permanently cut the capital gains tax. Does that also have bipartisan support, and did he have any consultation with Democrats on that?
No, my understanding was they were working on legislation in Ways and Means that would take away the taxation of victims of
that.
Let me try to finish. That would take away the taxation on victims of this atrocity. Now, if there are other matters that apply to all of our citizens that have broader ramifications, we'll obviously have to take a look at that. I was not aware of that. I'll look at it at the time that we should.
Once military response comes, it's going to be massive. It's going to cross international lines. Are you willing to support the president in any action he takes?
I support the president in his statement of the other day that unlike perhaps past policies, that we would try to find and bring to justice the perpetrators of this crime, but we would also take action against countries that harbor the perpetrators of this terrorism. I think that is an appropriate action to take. How that will be done, whether it will be done, is a question that has to yet be answered by what we find. But we have to be effective in facing down and dealing with this terrorism. Look, we've been faced with this for a number of years. This is not new. We've been talking about this problem for some time. This apparently was the work of a network of terrorists that may exist in a number of countries. We don't know the answers to all that. But what I do know is that unlike perhaps past times, we have to be effective in finally doing this in. What happened the other day, can never, ever happen again in this country. And in my view, in any country.
Should those funds for Star Wars
We've been listening to House Minority Leader Dick Gephardt as he addresses reporters talking about actions that he knows the House plans to take today, including voting and passing, he believes, a supplemental appropriation bill that would allow the president to have a large amount of money to go after the people that are believed to have carried out these acts. Also, an act authorizing the president to take appropriate actions against, as Mr. Gephardt said, the perpetrators of this attack. Let's bring in our congressional correspondent, Kate Snow, who can help us understand what exactly Congress is trying to do here. First of all, Kate, when Congressman Gephardt was talking about passing this authorization to take appropriate action, he stopped short of saying that this would be a declaration of war.
That's right. They're being very careful about the language. In fact, we understand there are meetings ongoing between the White House and congressional aides working on the language. We don't think that that particular resolution authorizing the use of military force, which is the way they're putting it, we don't think that will likely come up today, Darren. We think that it's probably going to be tomorrow, maybe even beyond tomorrow, before they work out all the language. This is a relatively new thing. The other resolution that you mentioned, the one that deals with money, now that one, they've just come out of a meeting. You heard him mention he was in a meeting with the other congressional leaders, that's the Speaker of the House and the Senate leaders, Republicans and Democrats, talking about this money. There is general consensus, Darren, that they want to send the president as much money as he thinks he needs. That they're talking about some $20 billion right now. That's what's been suggested by appropriators. I'm told that in that meeting, though, there was a lot of discussion about whether it's even appropriate to put a price tag on this right now. There's a lot of discussion about whether that's the right amount of money. There were some members from New York who were in the room who I'm told said, we need specific money for New York, and we also need the ability to consult with the president about how to spend this money. So there is a little bit of talking going on, but they do want to get this done ultimately today. Darren.
Which brings up an interesting point, Kate. When the Congressman Gephardt first came out, he was very clear to talk about the unity, saying that there's no air, there's no light between this Congress and between the president. And yet, as reporters were asking, and you're kind of alluding to as well, Washington's a partisan town, and everyone's going to have an opinion as to how this money should be spent and what action should be taken.
That's right. It is. And when he was asked about an economic stimulus package, which has been mentioned by Republicans as a way to send a signal to Wall Street, which means tax cuts, you start to get into the politics. But Darren, I think the bottom line here is these people are human too. I had a long talk with Dick Gephardt this morning about his feelings and his emotions. He told me he's been bursting into tears watching some of the coverage. The man you just saw has been bursting into tears watching some of the coverage. So I think there is a unanimity. There's a feeling here on Capitol Hill. They have to do what the president wants them to do. One other thing I wanted to mention, they passed a resolution this morning in the House asking every American to fly the American flag for the next 30 days. Darren?
I think that's something a lot of people would like to follow. Quickly, as we wrap, give us a quick civics lesson, and our viewers, does the House just vote on the amount of money, or does it have to go by the Senate as well?
It's going to be done by both the House and the Senate, but this is a rare occurrence on Capitol Hill. They're going to take it up at the same time, and it's the same language, the same bill, the same piece of paper will be passed by both chambers, sent to the president, and as I say, they hope to do that by later today.
Right. Darren. Kate Snow on Capitol Hill, thanks for explaining what's taking place there. Leon.
Well, I've been keeping my eye on something that's taking place right now at George Washington Hospital Center. President Bush has been there visiting those who have been injured in the plane crash into the Pentagon a couple of days ago, and the families of those people there. The shot we have there, we just saw moments ago, Communications Director Karen Hughes walk out along with Karl Rove. And we expect President Bush will be walking out of there any moment now. President Bush is there visiting those in the hospital along with First Lady Laura Bush. And we've also just learned that the First Lady has granted an interview to CNN's senior White House correspondent John King. And they'll be talking live this afternoon right here on CNN at 1 p.m. Eastern. There you see President Bush stopping there momentarily, talking to those other members of the press there immediately around that doorway. So I don't think he's speaking to anyone in the general public out there. But the comments he has made this morning show that this has really touched him on a deep level. He was very emotional this morning in the Oval Office speaking to the press before he went over to this George Washington Hospital Center, with tears welling in his eyes. The president said that I weep and mourn with America, he said, and he wishes he could comfort every single family whose lives have been affected. But make no mistake about it, my resolve is steady and strong about winning this war that has been declared on America. He says also, I'm a loving guy, and I'm also someone, however, who's got a job to do, and I intend to do it. This is a terrible moment, but this country will not relent until we have saved ourselves and others from the terrible tragedy that came upon America.
Leon, it was an interesting peek inside the White House that we had. I think it was just over an hour ago. First, we got to see live the president holding a conference call with the mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, and the governor of that state. And we got to basically eavesdrop in on that conversation. And then he turned around and started answering questions to the reporters who were with him. And while we were watching that he did appear to become more and more emotional, not out of control, but you could just see his eyes became a little bit more glassy. And as he talked more and he became angrier at the situation, you could see his emotions rising as well.
Now, he just stopped there for an impromptu press conference there to talk with the members of the press that have been following him. And we've got someone in that press pool, and I want to hear what they have to say about, or what they heard him say just moments ago. And as that moment that those comments you happen to mention there that got him so emotional in the White House, after all of that, he went on to talk about the fact that war had been declared on the U.S., and he says that they fully understand. He's talking about the folks that he had talked to in building a coalition about this. He was speaking to Middle Eastern leaders as well as leaders in Europe and NATO, saying that they all fully understand that an act of war was declared on the United States of America, and they understand as well that act could have easily been declared on them. And he says that is what has steeled his resolve.
Yeah, and an interesting confluence of pictures to go from that then to see his father, the 41st President of the United States, President Bush, former President Bush, speaking to a group in Boston. We got to listen to his comments as well.
We have another picture. We have another picture.
Another picture. Right this time we want to check in Milwaukee.
Jeff Flock, yeah.
That's where we find our Jeff Flock. Jeff.
Yes, we have begun a trip around this country, taking a look at what people are thinking and saying out here in the rest of the U.S. Obviously, the focus has been to the east, We want to take a look at the rest of it. We are taking stop one at Marquette University. This is Professor McCormick's class. It's comparative politics, and this is what's on everyone's mind. You've been watching things unfold, and first I want to get hands. How many people saw live on television either planes crashing into buildings or towers collapsing? How many people saw something of it unfold live? Amazing. Almost the entire class watched this happen. What was going through your mind then, and what is now today, 3 days later?
I was pretty scared because I just got done with the ROTC physical training, and I came in, and my grandma just called me, and I just bought my airplane ticket yesterday, and she told me that, 2 planes had just crashed, and I looked up the news. They just had an instant replay of the plane, the second one just going right through.
What are your fears today, as we are now some ways down the road? Where do we go next from here?
My fears are that it's not over. My fears are that, somebody is going to come by surprise and totally do something that's just as destructive to the entire nation.
How many people are worried about that, or worried about future terrorist attacks? I guess pretty much everybody. Going through your mind?
I'm quite nervous because I'm a frequent flyer from Milwaukee to Boston, and I find it highly disturbing that somebody was able to breach the security at an airport like Logan.
Are people really surprised about that? I mean, how many people, give me some sense, were really shocked about this, about what took place? Yes, hang on, let me get to you with a microphone.
This isn't something that happens in real life. This is like something that you would see on a movie such as Die Hard or Speed. It was like a special effect from a studio.
Now, I know we've got somebody here who's planning to, is it you that's planning to travel tomorrow? Yes. Tell me about that.
Well, my flight's leaving tomorrow, and
good luck getting on.
I know. Beginning of the week, when this first happened, I was thinking, it should be back to normal by maybe Thursday, today, or Friday. But with everything, I see that flights are supposedly resuming, but for the people that were laid over on Tuesday. And I'm just curious as to whether I'm going to get home or when, or what's going to happen with all the new regulations in the airports.
Obviously, we were talking about that earlier, the impact on our society. I want to bring Professor McCormick in. What's your greatest fear about this? You've got more perspective than some of these people in the class.
I really hope that this incident doesn't shake our values. We're a free nation that stands for freedom and justice for all, and I hope we can stick to that.
Any other fears out there? Do people have similar fears? Yes, go ahead.
Well, you hear everyone talking about how we have to get back to normal and we have to get back on with our lives, but my biggest fear is that, the very definition of normalcy is going to change now, forever.
Life as we know it is going to be different. How so? Anybody? How so? How so is it going to be different?
Well, we as an American nation, we don't know war as a daily thing. I think that we're going to have a hard time adjusting to a war society instead of our normal going to work, going home every day.
Before we get away, we've heard a lot, we're at war. How many people feel we are at war right now? How many not? Just both sides? Why?
I don't think we're at war because we don't know who we're fighting. We can't go to war when we don't have a specific enemy that we're going after. So we're kind of in a pre-war stage. I think we will go to war, but we're not there yet.
Is that what you're thinking over there, that war is coming one way or another?
I think we're already at war. They took the step of assaulting large numbers of civilian populations, and the fact of the matter is we have to wipe out terrorism as it exists now. That's the only choice we have, or else this will keep happening. Better to do it now than when they have nuclear weapons in 5 years.
Yeah, but hang on before we get away here. Yes, go ahead.
I think that war is more than just troops on the battlefield or missiles being thrown. It's more of a state of mind. I mean, that's also a part of it, and I think we've taken that first step, and definitely people have that state of mind already.
I don't know which is more scary, the state of mind or the real thing.
My biggest fear is that our response. War today is way different than war was 40 years ago. I mean, just the technology has totally changed the way that it will be, and that's my biggest fear.
Yeah, I hear that. A lot of fears about the response, whatever it is, whenever it is. Yes?
I think that we were left with little choice. Either they have to turn over bin Laden or whoever's responsible for this, or we just have to go in there and get them. I think that's what we're left with.
Anybody get a sense of what it is? What do we have to do? What do we have to... let me get to you. Hang on one second.
Well, I have heard some people saying that perhaps we shouldn't respond because it would make the terrorists angry and perhaps make them want to do something more. But I think we have to remember that they're already angry with us and they've already done something. And I think we have no choice but to respond to that.
Anybody else on that topic? Yeah, up here. Hang on.
I agree, but I also think that another reason why we have to respond is otherwise we'll look weak in the face of terrorism.
Anybody got fears about that? Looking weak and what that may lead to down the road? Anybody? Anybody else? Yes. Yeah, go ahead. You right here.
Yes, if we don't do something, this is going to make America look weak, and this will just open ourselves up to further attacks.
Anybody got the other side of that? Anybody with the other viewpoint on that? Concerned about what the impact will be if the response is too strong, that perhaps itself leads to a worse situation?
If we are going to blow up a country, as some people have suggested, what will that do with the other countries around them, their allies? Will we get attacked by more people and more attacks throughout the world, our heartland?
Good question.
I think we're basically one of the strongest countries out there, and that our forces or whatever we use to take care of this problem it's going to be substantially good no matter how much or how less we use, just because our power is looked at by so many countries, and it's just a basis that we do something.
Sir, that's going to have to be the final word. We very much appreciate it. Thanks to you all. Mr. McCormick's class, Professor McCormick, thank you so much. Appreciate it here. We will continue our travels around this country to give you some sense of what is going on out here in the rest of the country. That's the latest from Marquette University in Milwaukee. Back to you, folks.
Boy.
Jeff, yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks
Good to hear from the young people, and thank the professor as well.
Yeah, the comments like these kids are making the same comments we've been hearing all over the place. Folks are on the same page in this country. All right, let's check in now with our Brian Palmer, who's at St. Vincent's Hospital in New York, a hospital that has seen much of the carnage created by this nasty terrorist activity. Let's go to Brian now live. He's got some you have some updated information for us now, Brian?
Indeed, we were just updated by spokesman Mark Ackerman on the current situation here at St. Vincent's Hospital and Medical Center.
Here at our Manhattan facility, and one die at St. Vincent's in Staten Island. There have been a total of 83 fire and police individuals cared for here in Manhattan, and we've had 95 admissions. We're pleased that a number of those people who have been admitted here in Manhattan have been discharged and are now home resting comfortably with their families.
Now, in addition, the hospital's medical director, Dr. Anthony Gagliardi, said that 11 patients had been seen since last night, mostly emergency personnel with cuts and abrasions. The spokesman announced that a website is still under construction that would list patients' names on a citywide basis, being put together by the Greater New York Hospitals Association and the city's Office of Emergency Management. But it's still not online. They said that there are other websites out there listing patient names. They're well-intentioned, the spokesman said, but not necessarily accurate. Now, we'd like to show you some rather compelling video that's slightly more upbeat. It's a reunion of two World Trade Center workers who were trapped in the rubble together. They couldn't see each other, but they were trapped in the rubble. Marlena Cruz, who is a carpenter at the World Trade Center, and Artie Del Bianco, a 20-year veteran of the World Trade Center, an operations engineer. Mr. Del Bianco could hear Marlena Cruz calling to him in the rubble. His leg was crushed, but they got back together.
That is fantastic. Thank you very much, Brian Palmer, reporting to us there from St. Vincent's Hospital in New York. We take you now to Washington, folks, now for the latest briefing by the Undersecretary of Defense there at the Pentagon.
Make no mistake about it, we will win. As a first step in that direction, the President yesterday sent to the Congress a request for a $20 billion emergency supplemental for the year 2001, and I'm here just to sketch in broadest terms our thinking on that supplemental. It's government-wide. It's not just the Defense Department, but obviously a very great portion of those needs are to prepare our armed forces for whatever the President may ask them to do. There are obviously other needs as well. There are needs of the victims, both here and in New York. There's rebuilding to be done both here and in New York. There are costs already incurred with combat air patrols that have been maintained over a significant number of American cities, including Washington. The costs mount rapidly, and they will mount more rapidly as this campaign develops. We appreciate the indications we've had from the Congress of strong support for this request, and we, of course, will work very closely with the Congress as we develop the details of how this money may be used. I think the most important point to stress is that this is a message to those who support terrorism that the United States is serious about the President's words. This is an indication of America's purpose